Hello. This video is on Piaget's stages of cognitive development. And Piaget saw children as being very active thinkers. So, really, as adults, we probably don't think as much as children do. At least that's the idea in Piaget's approach, right? The children, they have to figure everything out. And their brain is developing, right, very quickly. And basically, they have a lot to think about, a lot to challenge themselves mentally. But he says that this goes through a process where children create schemas or schemata, ways of understanding the world. So you might think of a schema as a child's current level of understanding or the current way the child currently understands the world and how things work. And so as we develop further, we change those schemas, all right? And as we encounter new information, there are two ways we can deal with that new information, and they're called assimilation and accommodation. Now, assimilation is where we have new experiences, the child has new experiences that are consistent with the child's current schema. So this new information can just be assimilated into their schema, right? Without them having to change their schema, okay? The bigger challenge comes when they are confronted with information that they can't really understand or explain. And that is going to require them to change their schema, change their worldview, change their level of understanding, and that is accommodation. So you can pretty much think of, as a child is in one of these stages, Piaget's stages here, that assimilation is taking place. And then once the child accomplishes the task that Piaget mentions, once they've accomplished that, moved past it, understood it, accommodation has occurred, and they have a new schema, a new level of understanding. So that's the process that moves the child within and between these stages. We have these schemas, and assimilation and accommodation occur, either keeping the schema the same or changing it. And so we have four stages, right? Piaget's four stages of cognitive development. The first is the sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage is from birth to around 2 years of age. Think of these ages as approximate. And basically, the child can only think about what he or she is touching, experiencing through their senses. All right? So if I'm touching it, I'm thinking about it. If I'm perceiving it, I'm thinking about it. But that's it. All right? If it's not physically present right here in front of me with me seeing it, hearing it, I can't think about it. All right? So a very basic level of thinking. I don't know, maybe some animals have that level of thinking. They can't really, think of objects that are not physically present. They're just in their environment, reacting to their environment, just thinking about what's going on right now. That's what he says the sensory motor child is doing. So the big challenge in the sensory motor stage, then, is to develop object permanence. He calls it object permanence. So the challenge is for the individual to be able to realize the object continues to exist even though I do not see it right now. Even though I'm not experiencing it right now, it continues to exist. The object is permanent, even out of my sight or my experience. That's object permanence. All right? So the child, if you got the child trying to grab something, trying to grab the remote control, just move the remote control, under a pillow, and the child does not try to look for it. The child just goes on to something else that's present. That would be a child in the sensory motor stage, right? It doesn't occur to that individual, very young individual, that it continues to exist. Just out of sight, out of mind. That's it. That's the sensory motor child. So once you've mastered object permanence and realize the object continues to exist out of my presence, then accommodation has taken place and you move on to the next stage. That's what Piaget thought. Now they mention a few other things there that these children will make. They make scale errors, right? So they make mistakes or errors on scale. So there's a couple pictures in the PowerPoint slides of a sensory motor child trying to slide down a miniature slide, a sensory motor child trying to get into a miniature car, right? They they know what those things are, but they don't understand. Well, you can't get into all cars. You can't slide down all slides, right? If it's tiny, you can't do that. It's not going to work out. They don't understand that yet, right? So very primitive thinking in the sensory motor child, and yeah. So, but also remember in the textbook in this development chapter, they're talking about um, continuity versus stages, which is one of the big issues in development. And so once again, later research, we're mentioning some of this stuff with Piaget, but the textbook also mentions later research that finds that children are developing a little bit early some abilities, mental abilities that Piaget didn't think they had. But we've discovered they develop these things sooner than Piaget thought, in a more of a continuous way, rather than as separate, sudden changes and stages, right? But I'll stop this video there, and we'll move on to the further stages in Piaget's theory of cognitive development in the next videos. Thanks. Bye.